Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. The postman has just delivered my copy of the November edition of White Dwarf, and it has some new Blackstone Fortress rules in it. So, being a big fan of Blackstone Fortress, I wanted to immediately crack open the magazine and take a look. Before we get to that, I do just want to say that while the Blackstone Fortress content is the thing that is most interesting for me, this magazine is a pretty awesome magazine for people who like Games Workshop boxed games, or even people who play 40k. There is a ton of new rules in this magazine, and also the magazine comes with a bunch of free gifts. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to very quickly show you the free gifts that came with the magazine. I'm going to very quickly show you the content relating to other games that may be of interest to you, and then we're going to look at the new Blackstone Fortress rules. If you're only interested in Blackstone Fortress, I will put a timestamp down in the description so you can cut straight to the chase. But first of all, let's have a look at these free gifts. The first gift is not gameplay related to any particular game. It is an art card for a forthcoming book by Dan Abnett. It's quite a nice piece of art, and it is on decent cardstock. Not necessarily something I would want to put on my wall, but nevertheless a nice little thing. Next up, we have a stratagem card for Titanicus, and I do not play Titanicus, so I have no idea whether this is a good card or not. I'm going to read it out to you, but bear in mind, it means nothing to me because I do not play this game. It says, The Miracle of Mars. Play this stratagem at the start of the damage control phase. The player chooses one of their titans and places this card next to its command terminal. At any point during the titan's activation, the player may discard the card to cool the titan's reactor. To see how effective this is, roll 2d10 and add 5. On a 7 to 15, reduce the reactor by D3 levels. If it's a 16 to 24, reduce the reactor by D6 levels. If it's a 25, move the reactor tracker to its leftmost hole. Cost 3. Like I say, that means absolutely nothing to me, but I'm sure there are some Titanicus players who are very excited about that card. Next up, we have a dirty trick for Blood Bowl. It's the NAF Fun Police. He's having none of that, spoil sport. It says timing, play at the start of any drive while setting up your team. The effect is, until the end of this drive, every time your opponent plays a special play card, roll a d6. On a 1, your opponent may play the card as normal. On a 2 to 5, the card has no effect, but they keep the card to play again at a future time. And on a 6, they lose the card. Next up, we have the Predator card for Beast Grave, and this is a card that you actually use with a new game mode that is included with the magazine, and we will look at that in a moment. It says, +1 move, +1 damage to this fighter's attack actions. This fighter cannot make attack actions other than those on their fighter card. This upgrade can only be used in games of Apex, cannot be included in any decks, and cannot be removed from this fighter except as described in the Apex rules. Finally, we have a new ace for Aeronautica Imperialis. It is Ruddock Reds. It says Great Bomb Ace. A single grot bomb fired by this aircraft may be piloted by Ruddock Reds for +2 points. When moving, Ruddock Reds may make up to 2 turns with his grot bomb rather than the usual 1. So those were the free gifts. Now let's take a look at the new game content that is in the magazine. I have gone through and put little markers in to make my life easier. First of all, we have something for our 40k players. We have the Index Inquisition, which is rules and data sheets for including the forces of the Inquisition in your games of Warhammer 40,000. So this is actually quite an extensive set of rules. We've got stratagems here, and then we have data sheets. And obviously, this video, I'm not going to go into all of these in detail. If anybody wants to ask me anything in the comments about any particular rules for any of these things, I'm happy to answer down there, but I do want to get on to the Blackstone stuff. So just very quickly, we have Inquisitor Greyfax, Inquisitor Kotiez, Inquisitor Karamazov, Inquisitor Eisenhorn, the Ordo Malleus Inquisitor, an Inquisitor, a Demon Host, Jacero Weaponsmith, and an Acolyte. And then we have Warlord traits, the Telethesia discipline, Relics of the Inquisition. So you can see this is pretty extensive. And then we have the Armories of the Ordos, ranged weapons and melee weapons. And at the back here, points values. So a huge amount of content there for 40k. Next up, we have something which is going to be of interest to Kill Team players and also Blackstone Fortress players, because we have rules for introducing the dreaded Amble as a roaming entity in games of Kill Team, kind of taking a leaf out of the book of Warcry and precursors such as Frostgrave, where you have your two forces battling out in the Kill Team environment, and then suddenly a dreaded Amble pops up. Basically, you put a token on the board at the start of the game if you choose to use these rules, and each turn you roll a dice and add the relevant turn that you're on to the dice roll. And if it's a 6, the Amble will pop out and start rampaging, and he just moves towards the closest target that you can see and starts pulling arms and legs off, as Ambles are wont to do. Good stuff. And we have, obviously down here, we have the stats for the Ambles and the boreworm infestations, which can turn up with them. Next, for our Age of Sigmar players, we have On the Moor Path, which is rules and campaign settings for doing an ogre Moor tribe advancing on their Moor path to victory. So again, this is pretty extensive. It goes on for several pages. We have full campaign rules in event tables, a brewing table, which gives you the effects of your battle broth. I have no idea what that's all about. And the campaign roster, campaign outcomes, and even a little bit of fiction for the ogre fans out there. More good stuff. Next, we have our new game mode for Beastgrave. Now, Warhammer Underworlds, I absolutely loved. I loved all of Season 1. When Season 2 came out, Night Vault, I kind of felt like I was done with the game. I felt like, as a casual player who wasn't doing the tournament scene, I had enough, and I was sort of losing interest. So I haven't really followed Beastgrave at all. I mean, I love the new miniatures that are coming out for it, but I didn't buy it, and I'm not buying any of the factions for it. But this appears to be a new game mode where you have an apex predator, and which can change throughout the game. And again, I'm not going to go into this in any detail, but I am happy to answer your questions in the comment section if you have them. But we have full rules here with rules on how to use the card. Note that there is a full-size art of the card, so if you decide to buy a digital issue of the magazine, you can actually get the image and make up a mock-up of that card. It doesn't get shuffled into any decks or anything, so it doesn't need to match up exactly with your cards if you don't sleeve them or whatever. It just needs to be something that you have available in play. So it's nice that they've done that for the digital buyers. Phew, that is a whole heck of a heap of new gameplay content. And obviously, I'm skipping straight past all the other stuff like the 4 Warlords things and the battle reports and all that other good stuff. So just the new gameplay content is massive. But we are finally here. We are at the Blackstone Fortress content. It is called The Kiss of Death, and it is rules for introducing a Harlequin Solitaire to your games. And it's introducing them as a solo character. So this is entirely for playing the game solo with one hero, or playing it as a 2-player game where one person plays the Harlequin Solitaire and the other player takes on the role of the hostiles. But for me, I can see this being something that I try out solo. And having flicked through these rules, it's absolutely created as a what-if scenario. It's not something that they're suggesting you introduce into your actual campaigns. It's not suggesting that you have access to a Harlequin Solitaire to go and play through Escalation or the dreaded Amble expansion or anything like that. It's specifically been designed for when you want to do a one-off dungeon plunge and you want to take a stupidly OP hero. It's becoming a bit of a meme to say it, but this is This is the guy who can John Wick his way to victory. It's a really powerful character. In fact, it's so powerful, and of course Games Workshop do want to get their little advertising plugs in, but it's such a powerful character that it does say, you may need bigger foes, so why not buy the Chaos Ogrin from Traitor Command or the Dreaded Amble? Get some big enemies for him to fight. Is it a him or a her? I said him, but I actually don't know. Yeah, I actually don't know whether these are, whether they can be male or female, or whether they are a specific gender. I don't really know anything about Harlequin Solitaires, other than the fact that you don't want to get on the wrong side of them. But anyway, yes, it is suggested that you have some big tough enemies, and the setup for using this particular character is that you will do a one-off what-if scenario. So you set up the game following the rules from the base game for a one-off expedition, but there are a few minor differences. Obviously, the main difference being you do not pick 4 heroes, you pick 1, you take your Harlequin Solitaire. It takes into account that if you come across any exploration cards that work on the basis that there's more than 1 hero, you discard that card and redraw. And the Solitaire does not have a spacecraft, so there are no spacecrafts, which means you don't have access to any spacecrafts. It doesn't even say fill up the spaces around Precipice with 4 other craft. You just don't have access to craft. The Solitaire does not require any additional skills anyway. Once you're all set up, you play through the one-off entirely as normal, except only having access to the 1 character, and whenever you're rolling on an event, there is a new event table for solo play. So let's take a look at the actual rules for using the Solitaire, and you will notice quite disappointingly that even though they included a bunch of cards, free cards, with this issue, they didn't think to make one of those cards the card for the Solitaire. It's still just included in the magazine as something that you need to copy and paste up or whatever. That is a bit disappointing. If you're sticking card on the front of your magazine anyway, and you're including a character card in the magazine, it just makes sense to have that card included as one of the free gifts. Here we have the Solitaire, and I will remind you again, this character is designed to be completely overpowered. It is designed to be able to go into the Blackstone Fortress and do a complete solo expedition without a lot of trouble. So, first of all, we can see movement 5, and movement is a big thing with the Solitaire, as you will see when we see the special rules. Nippy is the word. We have defense on 2d12, so really going to be able to soak a lot of damage. We have 2d12 on agility, as you would expect, and then we have the d8 on vitality. Only 4 actions, again, 4 actions, 4 wounds, as per standard. However, when we look at the actual actions and special rules available to the Solitaire, we see why this character is so powerful, because we have weapon option 1 is the Harlequin's Kiss, which rolls a d12 and a d6, and only requires a 1+ dice to work, and it has the special rule Monofilament Liquefier. It says if an attack with a Harlequin's Kiss inflicts a wound or grievous wound on a target, double the damage caused by that wound or grievous wound. So if you inflict a grievous wound, you can actually do 6 points of damage on a single target with a single 1+ dice attack. That's basically going to kill anything up to your boss level characters. I think 5 hit points is the most that a non-boss character has, and that would be like the Firebrand, I think, has 5 hit points. There may be something that has a little more than that, but yeah, if anything above 5, I think you're looking at the Dreaded Amble or the Ogrin or Obsidious Malix himself. Luckily, the Solitaire also has an attack that can deal with those larger enemies. He has the Harlequin's Caress, which only rolls a d8 as standard, but it has the skill Heart Thief. If this attack is a critical success, the target hostile is slain. So, it doesn't matter if it's an Ogrin or an Amble or Obsidious Malux, they just crumble like cracker bread. That is that. One hit, one kill. Headshot. So yeah, only 2 attacks. They're close assault attacks. They have to be adjacent, but that's not a concern for the Solitaire because the Solitaire has a blur of motion. When an activation dice would be spent for this explorer to take a move action, rather than discarding the dice, reduce its value by 2. If an activation dice would be reduced below 1, it is spent. In addition, in each turn of combat, the Solitaire can perform a gambit without an activation dice being spent. So, at the start of the combat, you can get a free gambit to get into position, and then when you use a dice for movement, you just reduce its value by 2. So if you've got a 6 in your dice row, and bear in mind, you only need 1s and 2s to do your attacks. So normally, with a character, you end up using your 1s and 2s for movement, and then you use your higher value dice to pull off your special attacks. The Solitaire can pull off special attacks on 1s and 2s, and therefore the big dice are going to be used for movement instead, because if you've got a 6, you can actually move 3 times before you have to discard that dice. So you can really move, and bear in mind each move is 5 spaces. Furthermore, on top of that, as if that wasn't enough, we have impossible agility. When a move action is made by the Solitaire, it does not have to halt the move when it enters a hex adjacent to a hostile that it is visible to. In addition, it can move through hexes occupied by hostiles, but cannot end a move action in the same hex as a hostile. So you can blitz through everything. Nothing blocks your movement, nothing is going to stop you and grapple you. You can go wherever you want to go. We next have a Dance of Death, which says when an activation roll is made for the Solitaire, those dice can be re-rolled. So if you're not liking your dice rolls for your activations, just re-roll them. And then we have Hollow Field. If a move action was taken with the Solitaire this turn, and frankly, there's always going to be a move action because there's so many opportunities to move. Hostiles cannot treat the Solitaire as a visible target unless they are within 3 hexes when they attack. So, yeah. And then if they do attack, you get to roll 2d12 on the defense. It's a brutal character. And it's possible to inspire. Obviously, you can spend your inspiration points or you can use your secret agenda. Make 4 move actions and slay 1 hostile after each move action in the same activation phase. Sounds like a lot, and for a regular hero, it would be. But for the Solitaire, not a problem. On the inspiration side, the stats don't really change apart from we get even more movement. We go from 5 to 6 because the Solitaire really needed a bit more movement. And you can see that the weapon activations become more powerful. We go from a d12 and a d6 to a d12 and a d8 on the Harlequin's Kiss, and we gain a d6 in addition to our d8 on the Harlequin's Caress. Furthermore, because I still don't think the Solitaire is quite quick enough, when you use a dice for movement, you only reduce it by 1 instead of 2 once you've inspired, which means a d6 will give you 6 movement activations per turn. That is stupid. Bear in mind, enemies cannot block your path, enemies cannot grapple you. You can just breeze through things. Yeah, crazy powerful, over the top. You can imagine the Solitaire spinning and dashing and running along walls and whacking people in the head as they pass by. And yeah, very thematic, very cinematic. And I can see exactly why it's not suggested that you would introduce this character into your campaigns, and the character should be kept solely for one-off what-if scenarios. But that is it. That's everything that they give you for the Solitaire. Like I say, it is a shame that we got a printed card rather than an actual physical card. I think I'm going to give this a whirl. And I would be interested to know if people would like to see a playthrough of using the Solitaire character? Let me know in the comments. I don't think I have anything else to say about the magazine at this time, so I'm going to sign off. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have liked the video, please consider pressing the like button, and if you have really liked the video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so, and hopefully I'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.